All right. Webinar is started. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to our PR Strategists and Build Brand Visibility webinar with NetReputation. My name is Claire Lilly, and joining me today is Kristine Szarkowitz, and we'll be walking you through this presentation today. First, we're just going to introduce ourselves. My name is Claire Lilly. I am the Vice President of Strategy here at NetReputation. I have 10 years, almost 11 years experience working in SEO strategy and online reputation management, focusing on brands and individual search results. I like to bring strategic vision and tactical execution across all of my client campaigns, making sure we're using industry best practices to achieve results. And I'm an expert in SERP analysis, which that's search engine results page, page one of Google, page one of Bing, content strategy, as well as reputation campaign operations. And Kristine, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Claire. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. My name is Kristine Szarkowitz. I am a senior communications professional with more than 20 years, specializing in PR, crisis communications, and digital communications. I work with clients to help them build their narrative out in the public domain, working keenly with tier one, tier two journalists across publications like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, all the way through the trades and down to hyper local media that would include podcasts and influencer blogs and the such. I work closely with clients to make sure that we can identify ways to build stories that matter in the news world and in the public domain, specifically for reporters, helping these clients get earned media as a part of their overall OMR strategy.
And in these 30 minutes, you'll have three takeaways. So what earned media actually is and why you really can't buy it. You know, a lot of digital reputation, a lot of those kinds of strategies, you know, really rely on like a lot of paid advertising, sponsored placements, those sorts of content strategies. But this webinar will really focus on how a PR strategist builds and runs a media engine for your brand as an add-on, so that we make sure that the algorithm, Google, whether it's Google AI summaries, are referencing credible sources. And, you know, we're also going to discuss whether earned media is the right move for you right now. And I'll let Kristine kind of speak to the definition of what earned media is and what it isn't. So I'll let her take it away.
Absolutely. So first of all, what earned media is not. So earned media is does not fall in the world of typical marketing, paid advertising, sponsored posts, paid placements, that can go all the way through to paid bylines or op-eds, nor is it owned content that would appear on your website, in your social media channels, in blogs. But what it is third-party coverage through journalists, podcasts, pitched bylines, and third-party sources out in the public domain. And this is coverage that you're going to see in publications and outlets like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, on CNBC, all the way through to trade publications in whatever sector your business or your brand might be operating in. This is an engagement where a PR professional is working with you and your spokespeople, identifying pitchable news and story ideas that then are sent over in the journalist arena. And the ultimate goal is making a connection for a valid story between you and your company and your brand with the media, making an interview happen, and then getting stories placed out in the public domain. And these are stories that cannot be paid for, and that is why they're called, this is called earned media.
Right. And, typically in this space, you'll hear about paid and owned. Owned simply means things that you or a brand might be building for you, like a website, a blog, social media channels like LinkedIn, Twitter, or X now, excuse me, and Instagram. And this is something that you can actively control. And that's what sets owned apart. So, what actually happens when a strategist engages? So, over at NetReputation, what we've been doing is when we identify, a good candidate for this kind of initiative and engagement, we usually start with a baseline audit. So, we absolutely will take a close look at what the current visibility is online, take a deep look at search results and the narrative that's been built around you or your brand, and that applies across Google, Bing, and the AI search engines that we're also working within. And then to identify, Kristine, I'll let you cover that portion.
Absolutely. So once the audit takes place with a potential client for net reputation, and we feel and agree that PR can be a lever that would be valuable for your overall goals, ORM goals. I then work with the company and your spokespeople to learn about what's going on, what spokespeople can talk to in terms of key topics, what the business is about, news that's happening, and really do an assessment around the current state of your business and your spokespeople. From there, we look at opportunities on content topics that would resonate with media and the folks that would be pitched for earned media. So that can be anything from macro level trends and business trends, financial trends that really appeal to tier one media, all the way through to, let's say, technology trends that might make sense for a trade journalist, or maybe current topics that are top of mind within a business industry that trade pubs and trade journalists would be interested, all the way through to perhaps industry thought leadership topics, where maybe a CEO or a C-suite person, or maybe just if we're working with an individual, ideas they have out in the marketplace that could be positioned and pitched as an expert thought leadership type of story. Once we level set there, I work to identify and build pitches that would map to target journalists that we're trying to reach out in the news world. And once that's done, the pitching happens. A PR person, such as myself, works closely with journalists to go through these ideas. And really, it's like a matchmaking process where the story's pitched to a journalist that focuses on a certain topic, or we call it a beat. And if that journalist likes that pitch or has an interest in it, then we collaborate and get it to a place where we agree upon an interview. And at that point in time, I would work with the client on prepping them for that potential interview with the journalist, prepare them with potential questions, speaking points, and really map towards what is our goal in terms of what we'd like to see the story come out as, in terms of messaging, in terms of the topic, what type of expertise do we want to see out there once the story lands. And then the interview is scheduled, the interview happens, the journalist takes the information that they've gathered, and they go off and they write their story. And then the end result is getting that story published. And that's the success on the PR side.
Mhm. And the ultimate goal after that process has taken place is to position you or your brand as the credible source behind what the story you're trying to tell. And the way that reflects in more of a digital reputation context is once these placements are created, this does help the algorithms understand that you are speaking to this on an authoritative level, and these things are being published in authoritative placements for the AI summaries as well as Google or Bing to reference. All right. What a typical engagement looks like, Kristine.
So we kind of touched on this in the previous slide, but again, it's a matter of working closely with the client and the key spokespeople to identify story angles that are going to resonate with the media, that are newsworthy enough to be pitched to the media, and also something that spokespeople can really credibly and authoritatively interview and speak to. The pitching cadence, what that references is the outreach to the journalists. And it's very important to know that different than paid media, earned media we can't control if or when that happens. But with good storytelling and good pitching and working closely with journalists and understanding what they're looking for, it's very likely. But some stories can be landed in very short term. Bigger stories that would be targeting tier ones, for example, like the Wall Street Journals of the world, those can happen. Um, that could take a month, 2 months, down to out to like 6 or more months, depending on what you're trying to pitch. And
Mhm.
it's very important to also note that the journalists get pitched by PR people on the daily. Hundreds of pitches cross their desk, and it's really a timing. It can be a timing game. It can be a topic game. Um, Breaking news is always, front and center for these reporters, and they have very, very busy schedules. So a good PR person is going to be the one that consistently is out there pitching stories, editing and content angles to adapt to what's happening in the news cycles. And then at the end of the day, it's that matchmaking thing that I mentioned in the last slide, where the right story meets the right journalist's eyes and interest, and the interview is agreed to, and then you go forward and execute on the back end of that. A key part of this, again, is the interview prep, which happens on the back side with us and the client, making sure the client is fully prepared for an interview, understanding the journalist, their outlet, what kind of questions the journalist would potentially be asking in the interview, and then scheduling that and getting that out the door and onto print or into digital news outlet, or even potentially through broadcasts. At the end of the day, the earned media, again, is the number one driver of visibility. With AI now, it's a very, very powerful tool to have in your ORM kit. And it certainly feeds all of the other levers that a client would be pulling in their overall strategy with net reputation.
Mhm. And this is where PR strategists like others on our team and Kristine, really bring a lot of value as well. Playing matchmaker, she's definitely, I mean, she's told me that she's, constantly watching the news, getting an understanding of what's going on in the industry, what journalists are thinking about, writing about, understanding their certain beats. And so her value has been, a great asset as we, have kind of, been looking more at this strategy to kind of, bridge some of the AI and ORM landscape as we're working with clients. Earned media gets more powerful over time. So to kind of go off what we were just speaking to, once these placements are created, the ultimate goal in the digital space, digital reputation, brand search results, individual search results, we'll likely see this be influenced in the company keywords, individual keywords, because we're working with such authoritative and established publications. And since that layer also exists with AI, we're seeing kind of across the board that those EEAT expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness reflecting in AI answers as well. So it builds brand credibility, it builds individual credibility, and once this engagement starts taking place, more media opportunities will arise, or typically we will see that arise as these engagements begin starting. Once we kind of get the ball rolling with our pitches and getting an understanding of what people want to speak to. The other part of this goal is for other journalists, other podcasters, other experts in the field to want to learn more and want to, also engage in that conversation. Kristine, do you have anything to add to this one?
Sure, yeah, I would second on that. A lot of times, if you're starting out, let's say you land a story with a tier one publication, the trades follow the tier ones, and the macro level news that is happening out in the public domain. And they'll often then bring that down to the trade level, into stories that are mattering to their audiences. And particular focus areas. And you're talking, so for example, trade reporters in the retail space. So they're looking at a Wall Street Journal. They at the retail level in a Wall Street Journal story, they're talking about the financials. They're talking about macro level trends. They're talking about earnings, and a lot of times the trades then see those stories pop up. Experts that are in those kind of stories can have just a comment, and that's even powerful that it's, if it's not a story about a particular company or a brand, an expert in that company can often be quoted in a tier one story. And that trade journalist will see that and can pull that out and contact a PR person and say, hey, I'm writing a spinoff of that larger story. Could we talk to your spokespeople? And this is where that last kind of mention on this slide, more media opportunities, that's where these come into play.
And then honest fit criteria. Is this right for you? Because not everybody might be quite ready. But Kristine, if you want to add more detail.
Yeah, so really, again, through the initial audit with NetReputation and agreeing that PR earned media might be a lever you want to pull in your ORM strategy, we would then look again at what's happening in your business, what's happening with your products and services. If you're an individual, are you out in the public domain as an expert thought leader on certain content topics? Do you do bylines? Do you do op-eds? What do you talk about macro level trends within the news? So we just really kind of peel the onion back and see what there is that we can potentially leverage to create newsworthy pitches. And if we agree on certain topics and ideas, then from the PR side, you or someone like me will go out and develop story themes and ideas and pitches that then would be passed back over to the client saying, these are my ideas, these are the target pubs that I think would be open and interested in the topics. And we make that agreement and say, thumbs up, let's go try to pitch this and see if we can't land some interview opportunities and move forward with our earned media strategy.
Right. And just to, kind of be transparent about this whole process, this might not be the right fit if someone is looking for something guaranteed, like a guaranteed placement on a publication. That this does take some time and several conversations in order to kind of get to that step. We might need to be doing some more discovery in terms of, what you want to talk about. Maybe that's not defined yet, but we can do that through some thorough conversations, some thorough auditing of your brand. And it's not an overnight success story. This is typically a long engagement. That's something that, we do want to set the expectation that this can take some time. But yeah, but the ultimate goal is to, work with, you to kind of make sure that like, if you do have a story to tell, we're getting it out in the right places.
And then the net end of that is really the value in earned media. Again, it outpaces traditional paid opportunities and paid placements. So the background work and the longevity that can take place in terms of getting things, getting interviews scheduled and getting placements live and placed can take time, but the ROI at the back end is highly valuable for individuals and for the brands.
So, three things to remember after this presentation. So, earned media just really isn't credibility you can buy. Coverage happens because journalists found your story worth telling, and that's and net reputation. Our PR strategists typically like facilitate these conversations. And oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Um, and then PR strategist turns that expertise into a repeatable media engine. Story angles, what Kristine just mentioned, these journalist relationships and pitching cadence. This is all part of it. This coverage compounds into search results, which is if it is like a digital presence or brand visibility initiative, that coverage, can compound into search results and be reflective in AI answers. And it works best for brands with the real story and a long game mindset. So the genuine expertise that we're trying to source and the availability and patience can equal the right fit. And how this is part of the picture. Earned coverage shapes search results and can feed the AI answers and signal that authority. For our clients, it's an extension of like the reputation that we're already trying to do or brand visibility we're trying to accomplish. And it's an elevated service that not every online reputation management firm really offers at this stage. In this process, one placement can lead to more coverage and can lead to, further AI answers, AI citations, and can build lasting visibility for, our clients and their brands. Kristine, is there anything you wanted to add here?
I think that's perfect.
All right. So that gives us some time to open the floor to any questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing right now just to see if anybody's raised their hand. No, I don't see any. We did have some questions that did come in before we got started. So I will go ahead and just ask those questions on their behalf, and we'll go ahead and dig into the answers here. So one of the questions we received, what is considered earned media and how does that help me versus my company? Kristine, I think you wanted to touch on this one.
Yeah, so again, we've explained this through the presentation. Earned media is just as it states, it's media that's pitched to journalists, um, getting a journalist on board interested in a story idea, and then connecting the journalist with the brand spokesperson or an individual and making that interview happen, which then ultimately leads to a story landing online, out in the public domain and visible to the public. So that how is that valuable? We've touched on this several times in the presentation as well. At the end of the day, earned media is the number one driver of visibility in AI search, and with the growing popularity of AI, traditional SEO is leaning into AI optimization and GEO optimization as well. So it's a very valuable tool to have as a part of your overall strategy. And again, is one of those levers that can be discussed through your team at NetReputation to determine whether or not you're a fit. And if so, we're very happy to partner up and add this to your ORM plans.
All right, great. Next question. What are the most important steps I should take away or take right away to get the best results from this program? How long does it typically take to see noticeable improvements after applying these strategies you teach? I'll go ahead and speak to this one a little bit here. So essentially, when you work with a firm like NetReputation, what we'll do is we'll establish an audit and a baseline behind your current search results. And so essentially, like what that looks like is we understand what you can control, like if you have a good website, if you have a social media presence, and we make sure that those own profiles are as optimized as possible. And then from there, essentially what we try to focus on is really seeing what, the AI summaries are saying as well. If there's some work we can do there, we want to make sure that like we're getting as much information as possible. And then from there, Kristine starts building, her framework behind what we can provide, right? So essentially like what she does is she'll step in, get a sense of like what this brand is and do her own version of an audit. And Kristine, do you want to speak on that a little bit further?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So again, something we've touched on, but really looking at what kind of news is there to tell? What kind of industry expertise does a company or an individual have? What Where can they comment on macro level industry trends, current news, what specific reporters are focused on, and then making that match happen between the reporter and the brand and or individual, and creating those pitches that will appeal to the media world and getting interviews set and stories placed.
Okay, perfect. And how long does that typically take? I think we touched on this a little bit. So there's no like exact timeline, but I will say, it will take, like her process does take at least, 30 days to kind of build on top of that, narrative building strategy. And it can take a few months to see, you know, uh, those kinds of stories land with publications. And if this is part of a broader digital reputation engagement, what we'll typically say is, this can take, sometimes a year to just make sure that like we're doing things organically. We're making sure that we're not, we're collaborating and speaking to a lot of these publications in a very intentional manner, so as to essentially land things as organically as possible. And Kristine, do you have any other points to make there?
Right, and I think it's just important to note that this is not an ORM strategy. This is a lever
Not
within it,
entirely. Right, correct.
and a key part of all the other levers in a broader strategy that gets you from where you would be today and where the goal place is where you want to be in the future.
And then another question. Someone wanted to see if it's viable for a small company and what their angle may be.
So there is no dependence on the size of the company, whether it be an individual person all the way through to a Fortune 500 company. That's irrelevant. What's most relevant is working through and, like I had mentioned, seeing what kind of stories, news you may have, what kind of stories are possible, expert thought leadership. There's all kinds of angles you can take in terms of pitching media, and there's all kinds of media. And it really is the discussion in the audit, as Claire had mentioned, having that take place, and then looking through the eyes of a journalist and saying, well, here are some ideas that make sense and are pitchable and seem highly viable, and then running with that and working through the PR process to land an interview and land earned media stories.
And then kind of going off of that, does this information apply to nonprofits?
Absolutely. It
Mhm.
makes no different profit or non-for-profit. It's all business, and it's PR works across the board.
Mhm. And then last question here. Using PR strategies, I'd like to understand how search engines and AI tools find, rank, and cite content. We touched on this a little bit. So essentially, the AI summaries are looking to cite, the most credible sources possible. And the goal of our media is to, once we get bylines or features in these kinds of publications, the AI summaries will eventually like start feeding off of that knowledgeable information. Now it is trained and it's using what's, been published about you. So it's like a consistent public record that shapes the baseline knowledge of the AI tool. But then they like to look at like what's also newsworthy. And so as we're, focusing on the earned media component, the goal is to steer them in the direction of what the news is talking about and what these earned media pieces are speaking to, since these are credible and they are third party. And what adds to that credibility is you can't really buy that kind of story as it would be with paid. Any other notes there, Kristine?
Oh, that's perfect.
All right, great. I think that's it. I don't see any other people raising their hand for questions here. Um, but that really wraps up our webinar. We're at the 1:30 p.m. mark. Thanks so much for joining. And also shout out to Kristine for doing a great job with me there to walk through this webinar with me. Really happy to have been here and explain the service line. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.